Hey guys, I hope you weren't sick of me yet. You guys were like, she was getting on here all last week doing these lives, and they finally stopped for a little bit, and then here she is again. Well, that's true. Yes, I am back again. I'm going to be talking all about destination weddings today with my new friend, Dashiel, and I'm going to see if I can. Oh, she just sent me a request to join on. Hang with me. I'm trying to get you on here, girl. Let's Okay, so while I'm waiting for Dashiell to join us, so Dashiell and I were supposed to be working on, hi.
Buonasera.
Oh my goodness, I think we have connection this time.
Yeah.
Good, good, good.
So it's afternoon there. So buon pomeriggio in Italian and buonasera in Italian for good evening.
Buonasera. I'll work on that for next September. So as I was just telling the audience here, Dashiell and I were supposed to be working on a wedding together this September in 2020 in Tuscany, Italy, which has now been postponed due to COVID until next September.
Yeah,
So I think that was a good call based on just here in maybe the last 24 hours. We've had some new guidance come out here in the US for when they're expecting things to open on a larger scale. And it just seems like they're really priming us for it to be a long haul. So it was probably a good call to just go ahead and do that. So sad that I'm not going to be in Tuscany with you this September, but that just means we have longer to look forward to it, right?
it doesn't really matter if, but I'm sure we're gonna do it, Amanda.
Oh yeah, it's a when, not an if.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's a when, not an if. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So Dashiell and I thought it would be really fun to just talk a little bit about destination weddings and maybe help put an end to like some common misconceptions about them. I know I was shocked when I saw the budget breakdown of how much you could get, for that budget over across the pond. So we're going to dive into a couple of those questions and just see if we can help get people excited about maybe another option for them. If you're hearing all of this craziness with things closing down here in the US and you're thinking, as soon as I can hop on a plane and get over there, that's where I'm going, this is definitely a conversation they'll want to hear. Okay, so the first question we had come through was what to expect in terms of cost. So do you want to talk about that a little bit, or do you want me to go through it?
Well, you can start talking about the spreadsheet that I already sent you, because actually there is not a precise and right answer about the budget in
Sure.
terms of having a destination wedding, because it depends on the head count. It depends on what the couple are envisioning. So there's different factors that may affect the budget. But of course, the spreadsheet that I sent you is more or less an idea based on 50 guests on how much it would cost them, considering the different services that it already includes, the most
Yes.
important ones.
Yes, and I thought, so to preface this for anybody listening, what I asked you, what you sent over to me was a guest list based on 50 guests. And when you and I talked, it sounded like that was really more of an outside number, that usually you typically see anywhere from 10 to 50 guests at a typical
Exactly.
destination wedding, about 10 to 50 guests. And the number that sticks out to me was about $25,000 US. The US dollar and the euro are very close right now. If anyone's looking at conversion rates and wondering, they're very, very close. So if you're thinking from a headcount perspective, compared to what $25,000 gets you here in the US, it's just above and beyond. And what really stuck out to me is that also typically includes guest accommodations. So Dashiell, that sounds like something that a couple could come to you to get help with, that they could go and find a resort or a villa that does include those guest accommodations, so that you're not having to worry about the logistics of shuttling people around.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Absolutely. Yeah.
that would be a huge.
Because when the couple reaches to when the couple reaches to me, I always suggest you find a venue that has already the possibility to host the people as well in terms of accommodation, because being a destination wedding, we want to offer all the comforts to the guests so that they don't really have to stress out by finding the accommodation for themselves. So there's a lot of venues here in Tuscany that offers a huge number of real beds. So that is what I actually suggest for all of them. Besides, it's a vacation, and a destination wedding is usually minimum of 2 to 3 nights.
Right.
So it's nice to all have your guests and families gathered all together in one place only, and you can do the rehearsal dinner, the day off, and the brunch after the day of the wedding.
Yeah, and nobody's having to worry about rental cars or driving on the other side of the road or anything like that. Like, you are just all going and relaxing and enjoying. Once you arrive at the venue, you're pretty much set. You know, you don't need to leave for anything until the event's concluded. I just think that sounds so wonderful. That's fantastic. And would definitely be I think that'd be a huge concern of mine. So hopefully that's helpful for people too, to understand. It's a little bit less common here in the US to see venues like that. You know, occasionally they'll have, a bridal suite for just the bride and groom, or maybe just the bridal party. It's much more rare to see these, 12, 15 room establishments that you can just rent them all out and it's all included. So I think that's fantastic. So that was the next question we got, was how to handle those guest accommodations. I think we touched on that. That's great. Let's talk a little bit about the process of booking a destination wedding. So a couple gets engaged. They are looking at their options and they realize they do not want to do this here in the States. They want to go and have that experience with their nearest and dearest abroad. What is the first thing they should do?
Well, the first thing that the bride-to-be does after he gets down on his knees and asks for her hand, the first thing we do, I think I did, was to go on the internet and find a bucket list of ideas. So what am I gonna do now? Where I want to get married? What the dress and all of that, because we're all excited.
Yeah.
So, being a destination wedding, well, of course, we want to firstly state what destination wedding means. It's a wedding that is held outside your homeland. So, it's always nice to have someone local that could really help you and do the running of the process from A to Z. Mm-hmm. So, venue scouting, vendor scouting, because besides, the local person already knows who is the best vendor for that specific couple.
Reputable
because
sources. Yep.
The first thing I do when I get in touch with the couple is ask them, what are you envisioning? What is your envision? What the priorities are? What are your needs? So based on that, I am able to exactly give them the proposals and the selection of what they are looking for. Besides it's important to have a wedding planner because a local wedding planner here has already the know-how of everything that has to do in terms of the wedding planning. We're gonna work with budget sheets, rapport timelines, everything. And they don't really have to stress out because they just have to come here, prepare their vows, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. So just to recap that, there's such a benefit to having a planner that's local to the location where you're having your destination wedding, because they are familiar. They're familiar with the area. They're familiar with the venues that are there and the vendors. They're going to be able to help you find those people that can pull off your wedding so that you don't have to stress about it from 3,000 miles away.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then I think the next thing would be, why on earth would you bring a photographer with you to your destination wedding? And I think this is a really interesting one, because I didn't realize until we chatted last week that you had never seen this happen before. And whereas I see it happening more and more, I was supposed to be at three international destination weddings this year. I'm sure that we'll be booking more in the future. It's definitely something that's taking off. And the reason I think that it's such a good idea to bring your photographer with you is because if you bring a photographer that lives in the area where you actually live, so I'm here in the DC area, If my couple's also in the DC area, we can get together for that engagement session ahead of time. We can continue to grow together throughout their lives as they have children and maternity and newborns and all those sort of things. We can keep growing together. And it almost makes it feel more like there's a friend there instead of maybe someone that they don't know, or it can be very uncomfortable being photographed. Like, it's so intimate. And so if there's any sort of a language barrier, or just, it just feels different, or you're not quite connecting, it's really, really helpful, if you're able to just really connect with that person that's actually photographing you. So from my perspective, I feel like a photographer that you bring coupled with a planner that's local to the area is like a dream team. Like, that's so good if you can make that happen. And I know, at least for me, for certain venues and things, or certain destinations, like, we will work out something custom, to make it work with your budget. It might be that, maybe you're inviting fewer guests to your destination wedding, so maybe you don't need a second photographer, so you're only looking at travel for one person versus two or three, things like that. Maybe you need fewer hours of coverage, so that I'm not looking at as much time working when I'm there. There's so many ways that, like, we can make that work. We just have to think out the box a little bit.
Well, this is what really happens. It's the first time, yes, for me to work with a photographer that arrives directly from the same place where the bride and the groom lives. But I totally think that it's nice to have a photographer that you bring with you, because, as you've said, it's something very intimate. What happens is, when the couple arrives here in Italy for the first time, we always try to fix a meeting before the wedding, because of course they need to know who is that person that they will spend most of the time of their wedding together.
Right.
There are couples who are not really comfortable being photographed, so it's like having a person you don't know there is photographing you, and you say, oh my God, you're not really natural,
Yeah.
And pictures be natural.
Yeah, and some people it might not bother at all. That's just really something that every couple needs to think about and to consider, when they're looking at how they're going to allocate that budget.
I think the most important thing here is that the couple exactly first, before deciding where to get a local or a photographer from here, just contact your photographer there, your local photographer there, and tell them exactly your schedule. Maybe the thing why they don't do that is that they are worried about the cost, because
right. Yeah, definitely. Just that's a really good point. Like, if you're not sure, what somebody's travel fees or travel schedule is, just reach out and ask. We're always here to have conversations, and we definitely welcome those. Like, I am all about, let's find a solution and find a way that we can make it work. I think that's great. So let's talk a little bit about, so you are located in Tuscany.
I'm in Siena.
Yes.
It's a city in the region of Tuscany, in the middle of Italy.
Yes.
And Tuscany is a beautiful region that offers different options.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that the wedding season here in Tuscany starts around April,
Okay.
and ends the first week of October, more or less. So weddings are held except for July and August, that are very hot months.
Mm-hmm.
We usually do it in May, June, and September, which are our peak season for weddings.
Yes.
Because the weather is really nice. You can stay outside. You can have an outdoor wedding. It's not raining. Of course, we can never predict.
Right.
The weather is like a Russian roulette. So, but Tuscany really offers a lot of options. You can find the waters, the sea, the hills, the mountains, a lot of venues, the typology of venue. We have the castles, the villas, wineries, if you are more up to for a rustic chic wedding style. So there's really a bunch of ideas and options for all types of envisions.
So it sounds like spring and fall are the best times. Pretty similar here in the DC area too. It gets really hot in the middle of the summer and nobody wants to be
Yeah.
out. I noticed when I was looking at my travel itinerary to get over to Tuscany, there's several airports nearby. What do you recommend for maybe a couple coming from the US as far as should they fly into Rome? Should they fly into Florence?
It depends on where the venue is. So first, once you have the venue already, because there are a lot of airports here in Tuscany. We have Pisa, Florence,
Yes.
Perugia. So depending on where the venue is, I would really suggest an airport which is just max an hour drive from the venue. There's
So
a lot of transfers.
I want to make sure I heard you correctly. So you're saying maybe choose the airport that's closest to your venue, so you don't have to
Exactly.
rely on a third. Okay, because that was my next question too. Something I heard some rumblings on when I was looking was that there is a train system in Italy, but that sometimes it can be unreliable or that you don't always know like when it's going to run or things like that. So it sounds like you're agreeing that maybe it's good to choose, like, don't fly into Rome just because it's, you know, the biggest city that you've heard of necessarily, and then rely on like a 4-hour train ride. Okay, good. So we'll fly into Florence if we can.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Florence or Pisa.
Mm-hmm. Great. That's awesome. Cool. Well, can you think of anything else that we didn't cover in this? What should, I'm trying to think. We talked budget. We talked who to bring. We talked planner. Yes.
Well, I just wanted to highlight again to really, if you are thinking about having a destination wedding in Italy, just don't do anything on your own. But trust a pro, really. Contact a pro, do some window shopping. I mean, contact all the, first of all, there's a lot of ways to find out the right vendor for you. We have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have all the other portals, internet, on Google. Don't look only at the feedbacks and the reviews. Of course, they are a good start, but just don't stop on the reviews.
Right.
Contact them, ask for an inquiry. Just don't decide based on the price,
Yeah.
but decide also on the value of that professional. Book a chat, an obligation chat. You know, first thing for me is important, because when you chat with the person, you really start to feel the empathy that you have with that person, the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So just don't stop on the email, but if you have the chance to, ask for a chat,
Yes.
a FaceTime call.
Yes.
Really, Skype, whatever, Zoom. We have all of this.
Technology. Use it.
Exactly. Use them. And maybe sometimes it's the price that makes you decide, but it doesn't only have to be the price.
Yeah, and just remember that peace of mind that planner is giving to you, you know, that you are able to just trust your wedding and the coordination with those vendors and choosing them. I wouldn't have any idea how to go about choosing a florist in Florence. A florist in Florence, that sounds nice. But you know, just to have that help, you know, is just, it's priceless. That's fantastic.
Yeah, because if, for example, the priority of all the couples are plan their biggest day stress-free,
Mm-hmm.
then maximize your free time, because you're there and you're not here in Italy.
Right.
You need to respect the budget that you have set.
Mm-hmm.
You have to rely on a trusted wedding planner, because maybe they can really translate your envisioning to a project. And of course, as you have said, clear communication and peace of mind.
Right.
That's really important. So try to find all these factors, and you will have an amazing day. We don't want setbacks.
No, definitely not. All right. Well, Dashiell, this was so fun. I'm glad that you were able to join me on this.
Thanks to you, Amanda. Thanks for inviting me. And I really hope to see you soon.
Definitely next September.
And for any other additional information you may need, you can contact Amanda, because now we're going to create maybe other projects or packages that we can build together
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
this. Who knows?
yeah. Oh, I love it. I think that's a fantastic idea. Yeah, so I will tag you again in my Insta story so people can find you, and hopefully we'll chat again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Buonanotte.
Buonanotte. Bye.
Ciao.